Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first senior college and career night that's done virtually. We'll be beginning the event in just a few minutes as we see attendee numbers continue to come in.
Boa tarde a todos, bem-vindos à nossa noite para podermos falar sobre a faculdade e também sobre trabalhos para os júniors e os seniors. Nós vamos estar começando daqui a pouco, conforme as pessoas vão entrando.
Muy buenas noches y gracias por estar aquí. Esta noche vamos a estar hablando dando información acerca de trabajos y oportunidades escolares para los seniors y para los juniors en el high school. Espero que estén muy atentos. Gracias.
So translation will be available for the event if you click the globe at the bottom right of your screen. Translation is available in Portuguese and Spanish.
A tradução vai ser feita nessa noite e se você fala português, você vai poder estar escolhendo a tradução em português. Vai ter uma opção embaixo, na área direita, para você estar escolhendo a língua. E se você fala espanhol, a mesma coisa.
Entonces, buenas noches, yo soy su intérprete esta noche, Mauricio Perea, y como pueden escoger el idioma de su preferencia, al final de esta pantalla van a encontrar una opción donde pueden escoger portugués o español, y aquí los esperamos.
All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to get started. So again, for those looking for Spanish or Portuguese, we're going to use the globe at the bottom to click for interpretation. All right, so tonight we have a great panelist of speakers that are going to be presenting to you. We're going to start with a PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to move on to a couple of our college representatives. Today we have Rachel Poulton from UMass Amherst, and we have Shayna Eddy from Framingham State University with us today. We're very lucky. Also here with me is our department head, Ms. Taylor. We also have a couple of our grade 12 counselors. So we have Ms. Desimoni here with us. We have Ms. Kazai, and we have Ms. Eurikio. All right, so I am going to pull up the PowerPoint and we can get started. All right, let's see. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So today on the agenda, we are going to go over a bunch of different pathways that you can do for after high school, as you will hopefully all be graduating this spring. So we have 2-year applications, so community colleges. We have 4-year college process, which I'm sure many of you are interested in. And then we are also going to talk a little bit about gap years. We're going to talk about some military resources and some other things that are available to you for after this year. So choosing your pathway. Oh, go ahead, Emily.
So you have a lot of different options, and I think this year it's worth noting that people are starting to think about what those options are beyond the typical pathway, because as we know, things are a bit unusual right now. So We had a lot of questions from our notification about this event about gap years. And so a gap year can look a couple different ways. There's a gap year where you're taking a year between high school and college, and that can be a lot of different options. There's things like Year Up, which is working on work skills and training. There's programs like City Year, AmeriCorps. Those are more community service based, and they also have educational awards attached to it. It's a great way to get accustomed to a certain career and get experience. AmeriCorps is unique because you often are in positions that you perhaps aren't ready to fully get into, but there's people there who train you. There's also internships through Dynamy. There's also gap year programs. So Teen Life, there's a lot of gap year programs that have international travel, national travel. Of course, those are going to be different this year based on what we're allowed to do travel-wise. There were some questions about gap years and whether or not it has to be a full year. Can it be part of a year? And a gap year really can be whatever it is you want it to be. So it could be working, it could be doing a program. And some students will anticipate that they're going to be going to college right after their gap year, and others might not be sure. And there's a couple ways to do that. We have some students who use this year to apply to schools, and they defer for a year from college. So that means they got accepted to a school, and they let the college know that they're going to not go next fall, but they'll be waiting 1 year. And other students don't apply to colleges while they're in high school. Either one is really an option. And one question that came up was, what happens if I graduate and I didn't use the resources at Framingham High to apply to a college? Can I come back? Absolutely, we're here. When you get your diploma, it doesn't mean we will no longer help you. So you're welcome to come back if you would like help. I will say, if you're planning on going to college at some point, it is helpful to apply while you're in high school. The reason being, I think it's helpful just to have a sense of what the process is like, and you're surrounded by people who can help you. There's also a lot of career and technical training programs if you're interested in going right into a career after high school. Some examples of that are through Keep Tech. There's programs such as the automotive program, HVAC, electrical, cosmetology. There's a lot of options with Keep Tech. There's also training schools such as Empire if you're interested in cosmetology. And there's also one great thing about Mass Bay is that Mass Bay, as most people know, you can get a degree, but you also can do certification programs. The Mass Bay certification programs are specific, and they are granting you specific skills that you would need to get employed in a specific job. For example, they have automotive, they have EMT, interior design, and those programs seem to get added to every year. So that's a good option, especially if you're looking for more training. And you might be saying, none of this is of interest to me, and that's okay. We actually have a lot of great other resources to show, to kind of explore other options. Some students decide to go into the military. Ms. Erickson has all the recruiter information for that, and the best way to do that is to reach out to Ms. Erickson, and then she will connect you with the right recruiter, and they're able to help you walk through the pathway of how to become a part of the military. Then there's two-year colleges. We've already mentioned Mass Bay. Those two-year colleges, you enroll and you're going typically for 2 years, and you would be graduating with an associate's degree. That's a 2-year degree. There's also 4-year colleges. There can be 4-year public, private, public universities. We have 2 representatives here today, Framingham State and UMass Amherst. Those are both public universities. There's also private universities such as Wellesley College, which is down the road from us, Bentley, colleges such as those. And we actually have a great resource for you if you're trying to figure out, how do I do any of this? We have Naviance, which hopefully a lot of you have seen, as well as Canvas. So I'll let Ms. Erickson walk through a couple of those tools.
Yes, and real quick, I saw a jump in numbers, so I just wanted to remind everyone that translation is available through the globe at the bottom of the screen. We have Julianne here, who is doing Portuguese for us, and we have Mauricio, who is doing Spanish for us. I realized I forgot to introduce them, so thank you all for doing the translation for us. So first I'm going to show everyone Naviance quickly. So I know we mentioned that it does both colleges and careers. So when you guys were sophomores and juniors, hopefully you remember doing some of the classroom lessons where we took a look at different careers. So in your Naviance account, you can go into the careers tab and you can explore different pathways and look at what's available to you. And then you can also look at the colleges tab and do some research on schools. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later. But something else I wanted to mention is that I am putting the entire college application process, all of the military recruiter information on Canvas modules for you all, because I know it's too bad that you can't be in person with us right now, and there's a lot of important information that you guys are going to need access to. So I am going to add all of grade 12 to these Canvas modules, and it will go over everything with the college application process with you. It has everything about applying to Mass Bay. It has all of the military recruiter information. So when you log into your Canvas, when it's added for you, for example, you'll see all the different modules. So it'll talk about how to apply with Common App. It'll have pictures and videos and links about what everything looks like, how to send test scores, how to do your college essay, sending transcripts. Everything that you could possibly need is going to be in those Canvas modules for you. Okay. So things to consider when choosing your pathway for after high school. Two of the big things are your long-term goals. So how is what you're choosing to do after this year going to affect you in 5 years or 10 years? Are you on the path of what's right for what you want to do with your long-term career? And the other is the financial fit. So for example, if you are choosing to go to a 4-year college, some of them are very expensive, and it's going to be a decision not only for you, but for your family. And so figuring out what is going to make the most sense financially for you and your family for what you decide to do after high school. And so I know we talked a little bit about Naviance already. So in that careers tab, not only can you see what different careers have to offer you, but you can also see what the different wages are for them, not only in just Massachusetts, but in every state and nationwide. And then you can also see the price point of some of the different colleges and universities. We have me as the college and career counselor available to you to go over all of these things in addition to your school counselors. And then we also have a career specialist, Mr. Lopez. So we are going to share this presentation with you, and the links about how to schedule appointments with both of us are in the presentation.
And I also just offer, so the question and answer feature is on right now. And so what I will do is questions that are quick and specific, I can type an answer back. And then if I don't get to your question, it's because I'm saving it, either because we'll answer it or because we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So we also first just talk about 2-year schools, and this was actually a question about 2-year schools. So some 2-year schools that are in this area are Mass Bay, Quinsigamond, Middlesex, and Bunker Hill. And like I said before, it's a 2-year program where you're graduating with an associate's degree. And someone asked the question, can you transfer from a 2-year school into a 4-year college? Absolutely. So there's a couple different ways that you would do that. The Mass Transfer Program is an amazing program we have in Massachusetts. It allows students the opportunity to transfer into a 4-year school, a state university, the UMass system, Framingham State, Salem State, those systems, and you get to bring all your credits with you. And that's a really amazing opportunity because for a number of reasons. I think some students aren't quite ready to go away to a 4-year school. It's a great way to transition to college. It also saves a lot of money. There's a lot of practicality there. Community colleges are much cheaper than 4-year schools. So a lot of students will start at a 2-year school, fulfill a lot of those general education requirements that all colleges will require you to do in order to graduate. And then once they transfer to a 4-year school, they're then going to concentrate more on the classes that they're hoping to major in. And so that's a great option. You also don't have to transfer to a state university from a community college. You can apply to any college you want after going to a community college. Some students will apply after 1 year to a 4-year school. Some students will complete the 2 years. There's a lot of different options there, and we're really lucky because Mass Bay is very close. It's a great school, and we have a really wonderful relationship with them. And so if you have any questions about that, we certainly encourage you to talk to your counselor or Ms. Erickson. And the other thing, the mass transfer, if you Google mass transfer program, there's a great website where you can say, I want to go to UMass Amherst and major in this specific major, and it tells you what you need to do in order to accomplish that. How you apply, there's each school, each of those community colleges will have their own application, and those applications are available on the school's website. And then once you submit that application, community colleges are great because they're open to everyone who has a high school diploma. So you fill out the application, submit, and you will quickly have an acceptance letter, which is great. And then once you apply, you then will have steps afterwards that you need to finish in order to actually enroll. So that involves taking an AccuPlacer, which is a math and English exam to determine your placement. And then at the end of senior year, when you all graduated, which will be very exciting, you'll be asking us to send your transcript, your final transcript, to the community college of your choice. So that is how community colleges work, and we certainly have more information on the Canvas page as well for that.
So now we'll dive a little bit into 4-year colleges. So we talked about the difference between public universities and private universities. So public schools are the state schools that we have here in Massachusetts. And then private schools are non-state schools. So for example, like we said, we have UMass Amherst here today and Framingham State. Both of those are public schools. So some private schools, we have examples are Boston University, Quinnipiac. So some students prefer to apply to public schools because they're definitely usually a lot more affordable than some of the private schools, but it'll be good. We'll talk about weighing your financial aid packages later in the presentation. So as a suggestion for people applying to 4-year schools, we say usually to come up with a list of about 6 to 8 colleges that have a balance of safety schools, target schools, and reach schools. So safety schools are schools that you are going to feel confident that you will be accepted to and who are more likely to give financial aid to you. And then target schools are hopefully going to be within an affordable range, but they might be right at the test scores or GPA that you currently have. And then reach school is when you are a little bit below the scores that they are looking for or the GPA. So that might end up being out of your price range because they might not be able to offer as much aid to you. So for each school that you're applying, note that all of them have different deadlines. Some of the deadlines that happen early action. So early action means that you are applying to an earlier deadline that they have as opposed to the regular decision. So usually early action deadlines happen between November 1st and December 1st. And then usually regular decision happens between January 1st and March 1st. So as you are building your list of schools, you want to make sure that you look at all the different deadlines. There's also something called early decision, which also has the earlier deadline starting November 1st. That's something, if you are interested in doing early decision, that's something that you are going to want to talk to your counselor about, because it is binding and there's an agreement that you have to sign. So if you are looking to do early decision, make sure to talk to your counselor or myself ahead of time. Some benefits of doing early action is that you get to get your applications out of the way. However, sometimes it's better to wait if you don't feel 100% confident about your essay or that you have your Common App together. So a lot of students prefer to do regular decision, and you also have a chance to improve your grades during that time too. So I wanted to note that college representatives are going to start visiting us at the high school virtually starting on Monday, actually. So something that is really great for you to do for demonstrated interest, which is when you show schools that you're really interested in them, is to attend those visits and actually talk to the representative, because it's likely the person who is going to be reading your application that's going to be going to the visit. So all of those college visits are going to be on Naviance. And so I also wanted to show you all about how to start building your list if you are still working on that. So if you are in your Naviance account and into colleges, then there's something called the super match, which is really, really helpful, because I know a lot of you are trying to be at the point where you're solidifying which schools you're applying to and that you're really interested in. So the super match is really cool because you can put exactly what you want out of a school and some things that you might have seen that you already like about school in here. So for example, if you want to go to school in the Northeast, and you definitely want to be in a large city, and you want to get a 4-year degree and study biology, let's say, or actually, let's just do accounting. Great. And let's say that you got a 1,000 on your SAT and have about a 3.4 GPA. And there's lots of other things that you can put in there too, but it's going to put a list of schools that would be a really good fit for you based upon your GPA and what you're looking for and everything else. So one other thing I wanted to show you was how to search a school. So for example, we'll put Framingham State. And if you click on Framingham State, there's something called a scattergram that's going to give students a really good idea about where they fit as far as other students who have applied from Framingham High School. So this scattergram represents students who have all applied to Framingham State from Framingham High School in the past, and you can search them based upon your GPA and SATs. So all of you should have an icon in your Naviance account that's going to show where you compare and how to decide if a school is a safety or a target or a reach. So there's a bunch of important elements of the college application. And these are just some of the things that we are going to go over with you guys for four-year schools.
All right, so the application itself. So most schools at this point use the Common Application. The Common Application is at commonapp.org, and we'll show that to you in just a moment. And then other schools require their own specific application that's unique to that specific institution. In that case, you'd be finding it directly on their college's website. And I think it's probably worth mentioning that throughout this whole process, none of it is something you can't do. It's just a lot of organizational challenges. So each school has their own requirements in terms of the type of application, the number of recommendations they're looking for. So it's a really good opportunity to start getting very organized. And then, so just like with the does a school use the Common Application? Does it use its own electronic application? That you'd be finding out on the college's individual website. And so in most colleges, most applications are going to look the same, but if they have multiple different types of applications, you will have to fill out the same information a couple times. And most schools also have an essay, and if we can go to the Common App, we can kind of click around so you kind of understand what it looks like.
Did I stop sharing? No.
So the Common Application, you will, yeah, if you could reshare.
Oh, okay.
The Common Application, you're creating your own account. So you use your email address and you create an account. It looks like this. And what I like to kind of describe is there's different tabs. The Common App tab has all of your basic information. It has your name, your address. It has parent guardian information. It also has education information. So if we click on education information, this is where you're going to put Framingham High School as your school. It's going to ask about your GPA. It asks about how many students are in our class. That number this year is 502. And we will send out the basic information that you need because we get a lot of the same questions about what that looks like. So the graduating class size, as it shows on here, is 502. Our class rank reporting is decile, which means we report it in percentages, and we don't report an exact rank. If you don't know your GPA or your rank, you just need to email your counselor, or you can email Mrs. Rossetti, who is our amazing office manager of school counseling over on the 10 and 12 grade side. And so again, this tab with all of this information is going to every single school you apply to. So if we scroll back up, we also, then you'll be adding, actually let's go next to the writing section. So again, this is where you're going to put the personal statement, college essay, Common App essay. It's all the same thing. Basically, it's a statement about yourself, and the Common Application has multiple different questions that you can answer. You only have to answer one. And they're all very broad. So if you have something in mind that you want to share, then you probably can have a prompt that will match that. The hope for the Common Application essay or any college essay is that you're giving the admissions folks a different perspective of who you are. So it's an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself that's not included in the rest of your application. And it doesn't have to be very long. It actually can't be over 650 words. It's often harder for students, I think, to shorten it than to get enough information. So again, this is going to every school you're applying to through the Common App. So this is not where you would put, and this is why I love UMass Amherst, because every school would get that. So then if we scroll up, so again, this tab, all this basic information, it's getting sent to every single school you're applying to. Say if I want to add a school, if I go to college search, and let's add UMass Amherst. It might already be added, but we'll see. You search for the school, and then you click Add College, and then you go, if you go to the My Colleges tab, this is where all of your colleges will live. And so we already have Framingham State and UMass Amherst. And so then when you click on each school, it then has specific questions to that school. So when people talk about supplements and they ask you, is there a supplemental essay or supplemental questions, those are going to be under this tab under the specific school. And so this is where you can say, and this is why I love UMass Amherst if they're asking for it. My recommendation is if they have a question, if they have an opportunity to answer a question, even if it's optional, I'd recommend answering it. Because it's just another opportunity for the college to know a little bit more about you and why you might be a good fit for their school. Just like you want to see if a school is a good fit for you, it's also, they want to see that you're a good fit for the school. The other piece that is important to note is that you then are able to apply, you review and submit each application. So say if I was ready to submit to Framingham State, I could submit to Framingham State and it would send that Common App tab with all that basic information as well as the school specific information. And then I could go back and then apply to UMass Amherst. So you don't have to apply to all the schools all at once. The other thing that we'll talk more about is the Recommenders and FERPA tab, which is basically you're giving us permission, us being Framingham High School, to send materials such as your transcript, your report card grades, your letters of recommendation. You have to release authorization for that and give us permission. So this will be an important piece, and that's where that lives, but we'll talk more about that in a bit.
All right, so student transcripts. So your transcript is a record of every single class that you've taken at the high school since 9th grade until now. And it has what the course was, it has the final grade that you got in it, and it has the course level. So this is really the most important part probably of your application to a college, because it allows them to see your academic journey throughout high school so that they can assess how well you're going to be able to do at their school. So they're able to see, did you challenge yourself in different classes? Did you take electives that have to do maybe with the major that you want? Did your grades improve over time? It really is a very detailed account of your successes throughout your high school career. I will show you how to do that release for your transcript right now because it's very important. So if the first part is to go into the Common App, so in order to release the authorization, you need to have filled out some of the information on your Common App, and that is going to be your personal profile and then also your education section. And then once you have those pieces done, then you're able to connect your accounts. So the way to do that is to go into one of the schools that you have. And once you do it for one school, it's going to connect for every school that you have listed in your Common App. So the first thing you'll do is to do the recommenders in FERPA, and then you want to do the complete release authorization. Say that you read and understand, but make sure that you read it. And then you are going to acknowledge, and you want to say, yes, I waive my right to review all recommendations and supporting documents. By doing this, it's saying that you are giving us authority to send all of those documents to your schools, and then you sign. So once that is finished, then you get to do the second step, which is in Naviance.
And maybe, can I just interject? There was
Yeah.
a question about when you release, the question is about once you release your info, do you have to allow us to release it to every single school? So once you are signing the FERPA, that's going to apply to all the schools you apply to. So once you sign that, that's for all the schools in the Common App. However, we cannot send your materials unless you ask us to send them to a specific school, which we'll go over how you request that, but you are allowing us, once you sign that, it's giving us authorization to send that. Sorry. Thanks.
Oh, no worries. So the second part, you are going to go into your Naviance account, which hopefully all of you know how to get in. And then you're going to click the colleges tab, and you're going to click colleges I'm applying to. So even if you don't see an accurate list of schools in here that you see in your Common application, that's okay. Or even if you don't have any schools listed that you're applying to in Naviance, that's okay. You don't need any schools in here to match your accounts. So once you finish the Common App step, then you can do it through Naviance, and all you have to do is put in your email address and your date of birth. So an important thing to note is that you want to use the email address that you used on your Common App. So I know a lot of you use your personal email for your Common App. That's the email that you're going to want to put in Naviance in order to match your accounts. So we also have video resources about how to do this step-by-step and step-by-step instructions, and those will also be in the Canvas pages. So if anyone has trouble matching their accounts, those resources will be available, or just reach out to me and I can help you one-on-one.
Ms. Erickson, while you're in Naviance, would you mind showing where to find the college visits?
Gosh, everything's at the top. Yes.
There was a question about where to find the college visits, and then the other question was, is it going to be one-on-one or is it going to be a group? And that just depends on how many people sign up. So you might be the only person to sign up, and that would be a one-on-one, and it might be a big group. It just depends. But Ms. Erickson will show where to look at those college visits.
Yes, so if you go into your homepage on Naviance, it's going to be under what's new, which is on the right if you scroll down a little bit. So if you click show more, it's going to show all of the different schools and when they will be visiting. So we have, as you can see, tons and tons and tons and tons of schools coming. So not just local schools, but schools from all over the country, some even from Canada and other places. Like I said, it's usually the representative that will be reading your application who will be attending the visit. So these are a really special way to add to that demonstrated interest and also get to know the person and put a face to the person who will be reading your application. Something important to note is these do happen during the school day. So if you want to attend a visit, you need to talk to your teacher ahead of time if it conflicts with one of your classes. So definitely you need to get your teacher's permission ahead of time to attend these visits if it conflicts with a class. Let's see. Okay. So in previous years, we've had a hard copy form to do your transcript request. This year, it's all going to be online. So your individual counselors have their own online form that they're going to be sending to you for you to fill out a transcript request. And you will fill out those forms and put all the schools that you plan on applying and how you plan to apply, whether they use Common Application or the Coalition app, or if you apply on their website. And then you will send that back to your counselor. And you can only do that after you have done that completion of the FERPA agreement on your Common App and Naviance. A lot of students wonder, do my senior year grades go to schools? Yes, they are going to see all of your grades. So first quarter and mid-year grades are automatically sent to all of your schools. And then depending on where you go, we will send a final transcript once you're finished with high school. So this is just a little bit of a look into the form. So like I said, each counselor has their own form. So if you have Miss Euricchio this year, she'll have her own form. If you have Miss Desimone, she'll have her own form. So before you submit, make sure to do that FERPA agreement. And then make sure that you have met with your counselor to go over your list of schools and your plan before you submit that transcript request form. So that is going to be one of the questions on the form is, have you met with your counselor? And you need to make sure that you submit this transcript request form at least 15 school days before your earliest deadline. So if you have a November 1st deadline, it would be good to start thinking about what 15 school days is going to be from that to make sure that you submit this form on time so that they can get all of your materials out, your transcript, et cetera, to schools. So if none of your schools use the Common App, you still need to create a Common App account so that you can link your Naviance and your Common App. You don't need to have to send a school or send an application through Common App in order to match them. You just have to have your personal and your education section filled out and just have a school listed so that you can find the FERPA agreement. Ooh.
So the counselor recommendation, and actually before I talk about that, I think oftentimes the question comes up, so there's all these different pieces, and how does the college manage that? Do I have to wait for all the pieces to be complete in order to submit my application? The answer is no. So it's very important that you let Framingham High School know before your deadline so that we can prepare all your materials, but you can send your application whenever you're ready. So, and the most important deadline to meet is that you have submitted your application by the deadline. And I always say you don't want to wait until 11:59, the day it's due, in case there's power outage, the computer crashes. It's important to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. But all of these pieces come to the colleges at different times. So your transcript, counselor recommendation, those go together because we send it through Naviance. But in terms of your application, teacher recommendations, the college collects all of your data and puts it into a file to figure out if you have a complete application. So they start collecting and creating a file for you as soon as they get something about you. So the counselor recommendation, almost every college, if you're applying to a Common App school, requires a counselor recommendation. And the counselor recommendation is a great opportunity for your counselor to share a little bit of context about you that might not be in the rest of your application. So the Common Application, you're able to list all of your activities, community service, your jobs, maybe you take care of siblings. And then the counselor recommendation, they're able to give information about you that might not be able to fit in the rest of your application. In order to do that, you must meet with your counselor. And so in this fall, that means reaching out to your counselor to schedule an appointment either for a phone call or a Google or a Zoom video call. And they will be sending you a student interview packet, which is a lot of questions that will help them highlight what it is you want them to highlight. So that's why it's really important that you communicate your intentions to your counselor so that they can help start that process and so that they know where you're going, because I think it's important for you to use your counselors for the professionals that they are, because they've had a lot of students apply to a lot of schools and they can offer a great perspective of, does my list look okay? Do I have enough schools that I can feel confident about? It's really important to have that conversation. And so, in that, when you do your student interview packet and then have that conversation, your counselor and you will have the opportunity to talk through your letter, to make sure that you both know what it is you want highlighted. And there's also a parent-guardian brag sheet where your parent and guardian can say lovely things about you, and those can also be really helpful to add to that letter of recommendation. And your letter will be submitted by the application deadline along with all of the other school information. So that includes your transcript, that includes our school profile. Our school profile is just general information about the school. When colleges are looking at a lot of applications from thousands of different students and thousands of different high schools, they want to look at you in the context of your school. So they're not going to compare you to another student in a different school. They want to see, did you take the opportunities that Framingham High School had? So that's why we like to share a lot of information about that. And again, counselor recommendations are not automatic, and that's why you must talk to your counselor to request that. And I will say 15 days is the minimum. Your counselors have over 120 students each that are seniors, and so the more time you give them, it's very, very much appreciated. So if you know you're applying to a four-year school, I would say reach out to them tonight or tomorrow to give them a heads up. And then even if you don't know that exactly where you want to apply, it's best to give them that heads up so that they can start working on your letter. And to get back to this, if you know you're applying to a couple schools, you're welcome to submit a transcript release form to request for a couple schools. And you can always ask us to submit your transcript and other materials to other colleges later on. So if you know you have an early deadline, do not wait to decide on your regular decision schools. You can send in the transcript release form and notify your counselor earlier, and then you can always let us know, and we are happy to send your materials later on to those other schools.
So another important piece of your application are teacher letters of recommendation. So a lot of schools require 2 letters, some only require 1. You'll just have to look at the different schools you're applying to see what their guidelines are for how many letters they want. And in order to get your teacher recommendation letters, there is a form that you will fill out for your teachers, and those are available on the website. And if it just helps your teachers kind of see what class you took with them, what some of the strengths were that you had, and some other information that they will want from you for them to be able to write an effective letter for you. So it is definitely preferable to ask in person to have teachers write a letter, but given the time that we are in, it is, if you have not yet asked a teacher to write a letter for you, that's okay to send them an email or see if you can set up a one-on-one conversation. And so if you know you want to apply to a 4-year school, but you have not yet asked a teacher for a letter of recommendation, that's definitely something that you want to do sooner than later so that they have plenty of time to be able to write your letters for you. With the teacher letter, if you are struggling to figure out a teacher or two that would be a good fit to write your letter, it's usually good to have someone from junior year or somebody that got to know you really, really well over your time in high school. And it doesn't have to be a teacher that you got an A and it was kind of an easy class for you. It can be somebody who you worked really hard and you stayed after and they really got to know you well, and they can speak to how diligent of a student you were in their class, even if it wasn't necessarily an area of strength for you. Something else important to note is writing a thank you to your teachers who took the time to write a letter. It definitely takes a lot of time for them to write letters for a lot of students. So it's good to show your appreciation when they write you a letter.
And I'm going to just, there's a bunch of questions about teacher recommendations, so I figure I'll, since we're on this topic. So there was a question about how do I request a letter of recommendation on Naviance? So you don't request recommendations on Naviance. So some schools, high schools might do that. We don't do that. So what you're doing is you're indicating to the teacher where you'd like them to send it to, and then they log into Naviance and send it to just the schools that you're asking them to. And that's the same for counselor recommendations, so you don't have to request anything through Naviance. Another question is, what website is the teacher recommendation letter guide on? We have it on our school counseling website, and I'll be sending out a recording of this event as well as a bunch of different attachments. So it'll have all the forms we're discussing. Another question is, and a question about they're not finding it on the counseling website. I'll put it all in one place so that it's easy to see all these all at once. And then the other question about how many teacher recommendation letters do you need? That's a great question. It depends on the school. So you have to choose, you have to look on the college's website. And so every school is going to have a different number of teacher recommendations. So most of them are 1 or 2. And so some schools you can have 2 submit, some schools they only want 1. It's really important to look at each individual school and determine it that way. You don't really need more than 2. And I think there was another question about teachers. Oh, teachers who no longer work at Framingham High School. So we have a couple of teachers who are very popular teacher recommendation letter writers who left. And so we allow them to stay on Naviance for the time being so they can send your letters through Naviance. So that's not a problem, but you will need a way to contact them because they don't have a Framingham High School email address anymore. So that would be the one thing you would need to have. Is there an email address so that you can let them know which schools you'd like them to send it to? And the other, I think there was one other teacher question. Oh, for schools that aren't using the Common App. So for schools that don't use the Common App, we still are sending everything through Naviance. So Naviance is kind of our intermediary for all schools. So for example, we upload and teachers upload documents to Naviance. Naviance then sends those documents to the specific school. So if it's a Common App school, it goes through Common App. If it's another type of, if it's a different school that's not Common App, it's through Naviance.
For those wondering about where a school lists how many letters they need, if you have the Common App, it will be under that recommenders and FERPA section. So it will say how many are required and if there are optional ones as well. And they're also on the school's respective websites.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's coming up is how do you know when teacher recommendations have been sent? So that will show up in your Common Application as well. Yeah, in your Common Application, so it'll say when it was sent, so you'll know that way. And if you have a school that's looking for one teacher letter recommendation, your school counselor recommendation is separate from your teacher recommendations. Those are considered 2 different things by admissions. And if you're wondering if you already asked a teacher in the spring, which many of you probably did, to write a letter of recommendation, it's best to contact them now to say kind of what your intentions are, again, to give them a heads up. So it's always good to check in and don't worry about pestering them. It's best to give them, you know, the information that they need. All right, standardized test scores. So this is a big question this year. I think the bottom line is don't worry. So the SATs and ACTs, as we know, there haven't been very many opportunities to take them. And I've heard of stories of people driving, 300 miles to take them. It's not necessary because most colleges have gone test optional, at least for you all, at least for the class of 2021. And to be honest, most of them are expanding that beyond just this year. So colleges are not in the business of penalizing students for what they can't do. And so they're trying to find reasons to accept you, not reasons to deny you. And so for standardized tests, it's important to know you do have to go to each of the college's website to make sure, are they test optional? But we are getting more and more information from schools, and it seems like that is the trend pretty much across the board. Certainly not all schools. Right now, Framingham High can only host the SATs if given permission by the Board of Health. So we're not able to decide that we can host them until we're cleared for that. So as of now, we aren't planning on hosting until January 2021 after that. However, our amazing SAT coordinator, Mr. Walsek, is ready to host if that were to become an option earlier. And then ACTs, we're not hosting ACTs for this school year. So if you did do an SAT or an ACT and you want to send your scores, it's important to remember that it has to be sent directly from that company's website. We can't report them for you. You have to send an official score report by logging into that portal that you registered for the exams for, and then you send it to each of the schools. The red on the bottom, self-reporting your scores on the Common Application does not replace this step. And I think, yeah, again, I think there's been a lot of anxiety about standardized tests, and I totally get it. And I think a lot of you may have worked really hard to prepare for standardized tests, and it's very frustrating to not have the opportunities that you thought you were going to have to take them. So I just also want to acknowledge that. But I do know that colleges and universities are really wanting to find reasons to accept you. And if you come across a school that requires the SATs or ACTs and you weren't able to take it, I would suggest reaching out to the school. You could also talk to your counselor. We want to be able to advocate for you. And so if there's a situation where you feel like it's going to hurt you, we would like to advocate, and we can always explain we didn't have the opportunities we thought we were going to have. But the good news is more and more schools are test optional, certainly for this year.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about financial aid and scholarships. So something that's coming up to definitely take note of is the Fafsa application is opening on October 1st. So the link to apply and create your Fafsa account is here in the presentation. So it is free to apply, and what it does is take information from your 1040 and W-2, both the student and family, and based on that information from your taxes, they calculate your level of need and how much of a loan they're able to give your family for aid. Some schools also require something called the Css Profile. This also opens on October 1st. It's predominantly private colleges that need the Css Profile. And it's additional information essentially in addition to FAFSA that the schools want in order to determine your level of need. So typically every year we have events where we have people help you fill out the FAFSA, because it can be a bit tedious and it is a lot of information. We are figuring out how to do that, but we still plan on having a FAFSA day, or FAFSA day and a MIFA night to just go over the different types of aid, and then have people help you actually fill out the application one-on-one. And so scholarships are another great way to get money for college. That is something that I facilitate. They are also going to be on Naviance, and so I can actually show you that quickly after I talk a little more about them. So scholarships are people who are giving you money essentially to put towards your college education, whether it be at a 2-year community college or at a 4-year college or university. As we get notified of scholarships, we add them to Naviance with what it is, how much it's for, and how you apply. And then we also have a lot of local scholarships, and those come out in early January and are given to you all through a newsletter, and they discuss the different eligibility. So whether it's for students of color or someone going into a specific major, or there's lots of different criteria and lots of different types of scholarships. So all of that information will be in there for you about local scholarships starting very early next year. Typically, I start the scholarship newsletter sending it out to all of grade 12 in December, because that's when lots of other scholarships start to open up that aren't necessarily local to our school, but just a lot of other deadlines start for various scholarships that I do research on they have December and later deadlines.
All right, we have a lot of other resources before we move on to our panel. So of course, the school counseling department website, and I'll continue to update that. We send out newsletters, and again, I'll send out this presentation along with all of the different resources we've mentioned and all of the different forms. Mrs. Erickson is a wonderful resource if you're looking for help completing it, in addition to your counselor. And you can schedule an appointment with her or your counselor by going to our website. And I think now we will invite back our 2 college representatives. So we have Rachel Poulton and Shana Eddy.
Good evening, everyone.
And I think maybe the topic on everyone's mind, just to start with, is, I guess, a little bit about your school, but also your perspective on what this year is like, and any words of wisdom or perhaps reassurance would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. My name is Shana Eddy. I'm the Director of Admission at Framingham State University. I have been with Framingham State now for 20 years. I celebrated my 20th anniversary this past August, and I have worked very closely with Framingham high school students since I started out as a counselor. So I just want to thank the staff for inviting me this evening. I can also relate to all of you out there. I have a senior myself, and so I am going through this entire process along with you. I do want to say it is stressful. We have all been pushed to limits the past 6 months, and I think we're going to continue to see this this upcoming year, and unfortunately, I think maybe into 2021. But I really want to reassure all of you in terms of words of wisdom is take it all in stride, pay attention to your deadlines, and reach out to your schools. I cannot stress that enough. In the chat, I did put my own personal email address in there, and I would encourage all of you to reach out to me if you have questions about Framingham State, if you're thinking about applying to Framingham State. Take it all in stride, but again, you do have to pay attention to deadlines. I know SATs are a big topic and what we're going to do with them, what colleges are going to do with them, what we're going to do with passing grades. And as Ms. Taylor said, we are not in the business of denying students. We want to accept you. We are looking for reasons to accept you. So please know that, and I'll let Rachel give some more advice.
I agree with all of her advice, so not much more to add. But my name is Rachel Poulton. As they said, I'm one of the assistant directors of admission for the University of Massachusetts. I'm also an alum of UMass, so I graduated in 2012, and I've worked there ever since as an admissions counselor. So this is actually my 9th year. I just celebrated my 8-year anniversary, so I'm very excited. So yeah, I totally agree with everything that Shana said. I think the key this year is going to be communicate. I actually say that every year, you know, coronavirus or not. But I do think that communication is going to be key this year in terms of you communicating with us, your admissions counselor, and also your guidance counseling staff, your school counseling staff. As I've heard it multiple times now today, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I always say we're humans too, and we're here to help you. And we're not, like Shana said, we're not in the business of denying you. We want to look for reasons to accept you. So if there's a problem or you see something wrong or something doesn't look right, reach out to us. Please reach out. You are never annoying us, I promise. It's better to err on the side of caution with that and just reach out and fix the problem than it is to just ignore the problem.
Do you mind if I hop into specific questions about your schools? You're welcome to also, you know, say anything specifically that you'd like to share. Is that okay?
One thing that I actually, before you get into that, Emily, I saw in the Q&As, there was a question about the education certificate with Mass Bay.
Yeah.
And if they complete the certificate at Framingham High. So I am actually very good friends with the associate vice president at Mass Bay. And I was actually texting her while you were giving your presentation. And so the answer to that is that students who complete the certificate program at Framingham High will receive an articulation credit at Mass Bay. And it does take about 2 semesters part-time to complete that program at Mass Bay. So I did want to address that. I just saw that as a very specific
Thank you.
I had that answer, so.
That's great. Another question that I think there's broadly, and then maybe specifically, at least to the UMass system. So majors that typically require SAT scores or programs that typically require SAT scores, including the Honors College, including BSN programs, nursing programs. Can you speak to, for your schools, what that is looking like this year?
Yeah, so this year, so I put it in the chat, the link to the FAQ for test optional. I think that's what the majority of the questions were about that I saw, so we are test optional for all of our programs, all of our majors, including the Honors College. So how we're reviewing, and it talks more about this in that FAQ, but how we're reviewing in terms of test scores is we're only going to be including or considering your test scores if it helps you. So if you are somebody who did take the SAT and you're, kind of wondering, should I send them, should I not? Send them, because we're only going to use them if it helps you. And there's a lot of data and background stuff, more information than you need to know on how we determine that. But we've basically created a way by analyzing a lot of data to determine a projected score for you. So if these scores that you send us come in lower than what we projected you at, we will not use your scores when we review your application. Okay, so it truly, I cannot stress this enough, because as Emily and Rachel stated, I think there's a lot of stress right now around if you should send your scores for test optional schools. And I can speak to UMass Amherst that we are truly only going to use the scores if it helps you. Okay, and that is, again, that's for all majors, that's for the Honors College. Every program, even the nursing program, everything is going to be test optional. Okay, so that really I mean, we've always read holistically, but I guess I could say that we're really going to rely more heavily on that holistic information. So obviously taking those test scores out, we're going to be relying on all that other information that you were just presented on, you know, the extracurriculars and the essay and the letters of recommendation. All of that will now be, you know, I guess more heavily considered without those test scores. So I hope that broadly answers, at least for UMass Amherst and the majors. But like I said, that kind of goes across for all of our programs.
The same thing is going to hold true with Framingham State. When all this happened back in the spring, we made the decision and went to our governance and made the decision to eliminate the SATs, you know, for our honors college and any other programs that we offer. I know there was a question in there about our nursing program. Our nursing program is an RN to a BS in nursing. So you do have to have that RN first. We work very closely, again, with our friends over at Mass Bay. We have a number of transfer students coming from Mass Bay to Framingham State once they complete their RN degree. But again, the same thing. I think you're going to find that with many colleges. I know some of my colleagues in the state universities, they have gone test optional for some of their more competitive programs and programs that have typically required SATs in the past. So again, you do want to make sure that you're checking with each school. It's going to be really important to do that and to reach out. I don't want to speak for any college or university, but I will say I think that the push this year really has been to go test optional and to figure out other ways to admit students into these types of programs.
And I think if we can invite our counselors back, and I will start asking rapid fire questions and anyone can jump in. One question that people have is, when is the right time to start applying for colleges? Is it okay to start applying right now?
I can certainly answer that. Apply. The sooner you apply, and as Ms. Taylor said, you do not have to have all of your documents ready. But soon as you submit that application, what that does is that allows us as admissions folks to contact you. We will notify you and let you know. I know there's a lot of questions about how do we know when things arrive at the college or university. I think every college and university at this point has some sort of tool to reach out to their applicants to let them know what is missing from their application. I know at Framingham, we will send you emails, we will call you, we will send you a letter. We do pretty much everything other than show up at your door. And there are some times when I do want to show up people's doors. So, you know, definitely apply. I know we talked a little bit about early action deadlines and early decision deadlines. So if you do want to apply either early action or early decision to a college or university, make sure that your information is in by those deadlines. But for anyone else who even wants to apply regular, we have a preferred deadline of February 15th, but you can apply tonight, you know, to Framingham State, even though our preferred deadline is not until February. But again, it just allows us to communicate a little bit more with you. And so the other piece of advice that I have to that is, if you apply to a school, I know at this point you are probably completely inundated with emails and brochures coming to your house and everything else, text messages. If you apply to a school, make sure you're opening up those emails, make sure you're opening up those letters, make sure you're looking at those text messages, because we're trying to get in contact with you.
And that becomes especially important once you've applied, because that's how they will communicate to you that they're missing something. And so you want to make sure that you're seeing that they're missing something, a part of your application, so that you don't miss an opportunity. Another question that some folks have had, do you use an unweighted or weighted GPA when applying?
Framingham High School always uses weighted GPAs. We don't use any unweighted GPAs at all.
Yeah, and I think Shana and Rachel probably can attest to this, that colleges then recalculate your GPA so that they're looking at the same the same scale. So they're taking all your grades, and they might have their own way of recalculating. But we, as Framingham High, just report weighted. Another question is about AP scores. Do you have to send them? And if so, how would you send them?
I can answer that on the college side. So AP scores, actually a good transition off of the GPA recalculation. So AP scores are not looked at in terms of at least at UMass, every school obviously is different. But at UMass, we don't look at your AP score when we're reviewing the application, but the AP scores can come into play if you actually choose UMass and you want to get credit for those tests you took. So usually it's a 4 or a 5 you need to get on the AP exam. There are still some 3s floating around out there, but mostly 4s or 5s. And if you have the College Board send us your official scores, we'll add those to your file. And then if, like I said, if you end up choosing UMass, those scores will be posted to your account, and then they'll count for some sort of college credit here at UMass. So, you know, Bio 100, Psych 100, things like that. If you just take an AP course, you know, either now or you already have taken an AP course, those courses get a higher weight when we recalculate the GPA. So you actually get a full point weighted, like extra weight for that. So let's say you have a 3.0 or a B in an AP course. With our recalculation, you actually have a 4.0 or an A. So you'll actually get a weighted bump up for that when we recalculate your GPA for any AP scores. And all of the UMasses and all the state universities actually do it the same way in Massachusetts. We all follow the same guidelines from the Massachusetts Board of Higher Ed. So it's actually all the same.
And from the, oh, go ahead.
I just add, Framingham does receive, we will accept a score of a 3, 4, and 5. So a little bit different than UMass, just wanted to put that in there.
I also just wanted to share that I'm pretty sure on the Common App, you're able to self-report your AP scores. So if you have AP scores from your junior year, you can add those to your Common App as part of the self-report.
Yeah. And from the high school side, we often say don't pay to send your scores from College Board until you know where you're going, because the college doesn't need to see your official score report unless they're trying to assign you credit. And so Shayna and Rachel can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would suggest save your money, self-report your scores in Common App, only send at the very end when you know where you're going.
AP scores are sent through College Board. I know that we kind of sprinkled that in there, but for those wondering how to send your AP scores, it's through the College Board, same as your SAT.
Some questions about early decision, regular decision, early action. Can someone speak to, is that helpful? Does it hurt your chances? Can you apply to multiple schools? Just more about how that works.
I can talk a little bit about all three actually. So we don't offer early decision at Framingham State, and I don't believe UMass does either. Okay, so early decision is a binding agreement. So basically when you apply to a school, early decision, and I know your counselors can speak a little bit more to this, but you then, if you are accepted to that university, you are saying to that university that you are going to withdraw your other applications. So if you apply to a school early decision, that is a binding agreement with that university. Early action is a completely different program. At Framingham, we have an early action program where students will apply by November 15th. We guarantee a decision to you by December 15th. However, it is non-binding. You still have until May 1st to submit your enrollment deposit. So you still have time to maybe see the university, receive your financial aid, come to some of our accepted students events in the spring, and then make your final decision by that May 1st deadline. That is early action. You can apply to a number of schools early action. And then of course you have a regular preferred deadline. Some schools will have 2 separate early action deadlines. Some will have first deadline and then a second deadline. So again, this is really up to the student to make sure that you know the deadlines of your colleges and universities. I don't know if I have any fans of Excel out there, but I am a huge fan of Excel, and my son has an Excel sheet going on right now of when things are due and what is due for each school.
There's a couple, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add just quickly, oftentimes we have students asking us, is it better to apply early than regular decision? And it really depends on the student. If you're not happy with your GPA at the end of your junior year and you feel you need your first and second term grades to maybe boost your chances of being accepted, it's okay to apply regular. And this is something that we as counselors are happy to have this conversation with you. So just please make sure to make an appointment to talk with us so we can just talk about kind of the pros and cons of early or regular for your specific situation.
One more note about early decision is you're also making a financial commitment to say that if you're accepted, you can afford to go there no matter what your financial aid package actually looks like. So if you think that you might be needing to compare financial aid packages when you receive your acceptances, then early decision may not be the right course for you.
There are a lot of questions about if they should send their PSAT scores and if PSAT scores would be helpful. So I'm guessing that would maybe be a good question for Rachel and Shayna.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't accept the PSAT scores. I did see a few of those. I should have mentioned that earlier. So yeah, unfortunately, we won't. That won't, you know, like replace the SAT, and we've actually never accepted it in general. So so unfortunately, you won't be able to send that for us.
Okay, another question, I think maybe generally to speak to where people should be in the process right now. So I think they're aware that there's deadlines and there's different deadlines, but I think some guidance about where should students be would be great.
Right now, if you have received anything from Framingham State, it probably has my name on it, or an email. Right now, the best place for you to be is to visit some of these schools. So I will, you know, kind of talk up Framingham. We do have some very limited COVID, you know, considerations in place for on-campus tours. So you're able to take a self-guided tour or have a tour with one of our counselors. I don't know how long we will be able to host those, but we're hoping for the entire year. But there are a lot of virtual tours out there. And I think I can speak for the majority of colleges and universities where we really had to pivot in the spring and really take our operation to Zoom and train all of our tour guides how to run Zoom meetings, how to get them in front of our students, because we know students, you do not want to hear from us as much as we like to talk. You want to hear from students. And so I would really encourage you, if you are interested in schools, if you're not able to visit, if they're not offering tours, which some schools are not, make sure that you're signing up for those virtual or remote tours, campus tours, information sessions, because that's the best way that you're going to find out about a campus. And if a campus is close enough, drive by, right? You know, you can certainly drive by, do not get out of your car, do not go into buildings, but certainly drive by and really just see the campus. So that's really, you know, in terms of right now where you should be, it should be finding out when the deadlines are for your schools and visiting as best you can.
Maybe could a counselor kind of speak to like the timeline of in terms of, I think some students maybe have started their Common App, some students are still thinking about schools, maybe just some reassurance or guidance around where students should be at.
Sure, I'll answer. I personally think it's really important to recognize that this is a personal journey. Everyone's student's trajectory is different. We have students right now who are ready to submit and send their applications, and some of you that are watching right tonight have not started, and that's okay. It's just super important to be utilizing the resources available to you, coming to meeting with your counselor, meeting with Ms. Erickson, talking to your family. So don't be discouraged when you hear others maybe ahead of where you're at, but please just take advantage of the supports that are available to you.
I just want to mention too, if you know that you want to apply to a 4-year college, and you have not asked teachers for letters of recommendation, that's something that I would do in the next couple days, is send 2 teachers emails and ask them if it's possible for them to write a letter on your behalf, just so that you have that part started. I would also recommend creating a Common App account. It doesn't mean that you have to finish it or complete it, but create it and take a look at the Common App essay questions, the essay prompts, and start thinking about what you want to write for your essay. And also, of course, what Ms. Desimone said about utilizing your resources, asking for help. It is a journey. People are in different positions right now with the application process, and that's why we're here. We're here to help. So ask.
There's a question about if students are applying to a school that only requires 1 teacher letter recommendation, but they have 2. They're wondering if a counselor can read the 2 and advise as to which letter to send.
Typically, we don't have the rights to read teacher letter recommendations. And once you waive your rights on the FERPA, that pretty much lets us know that we don't really have the rights to read letters of recommendation from teachers. We don't have access to that for the most part.
I think a couple questions about application fees and how those work, and potentially I'm also guessing maybe some resources about how to manage all these fees.
Go
ahead, Shannon.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's a lot of and I know, I'm sure Ms. Erickson's gonna talk a little bit about the fee waiver through NACAC and College Board. But there are also a lot of other ways to have your application fee waived. I know at Framingham, if you come take a tour before the preferred deadline, a virtual tour, we will waive your application fee. Salem State, I believe they're doing it again this year, but if you apply by Halloween, which is very appropriate for them, you will have your application fee waived. So definitely there are ways to have your application fee waived through the colleges, but there are other ways in terms of financially. And I'll let the counselors talk to that.
So for students who are on free or reduced lunch or have some other qualifiers, there is a section on the Common Application. It's actually under the personal information under my Common App, and it will give all of the qualifiers for what constitutes as needing a fee waiver. So if you think that you might qualify and you haven't filled out your free or reduced lunch form yet, I highly encourage you to do that this year. And to see if you do qualify, you can find that information both inside of your Common App and on the College Board website.
And the way that you pay for the fees is through College Board. It's a credit card, like you're doing online shopping. So you just put in your credit card information, and it's individual to each school, and those vary. So some are $50, some are $75. It just depends. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, but I want to assure everyone what we will do with all the questions is we'll have a document with all the questions and answers, and we'll send them. So if we didn't get to your question, it will be answered and sent out, so that, because I'm sure if one person has the question, then lots of people have the question. Let's see, I think, writing resources, help with essays, what that looks like. And I actually got an update maybe this evening from Mr. Cook. So Mr. Cook is the department head for English. He also is therefore in charge of the Writing Center. So they're working on structuring the Writing Center in a way that can help students in the normal way that they do, and also with college essays. And so that will be available, and we'll be sure to pass along that information. There was also a question about when your essay should be ready. Your essay should be ready when you're going to submit your application. It actually won't let you submit if you haven't finished your application. A question about, will colleges be able to see the classes we are taking this year and or the grades in them?
So those classes are going to appear on your transcript, and your grades are going to be sent out throughout your senior year to colleges. There's also a section of your Common App called My Courses, which is going to be all of your senior year classes that you're taking and the level that they're at, and which semester they are, or if they're a full year. So they will definitely see senior classes and grades.
And since we have college reps, a question about what the Honors College is, if you can just kind of speak to that.
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier without explaining what it was. Yeah, so our Commonwealth Honors College, which is our honors program at UMass, that's what it is. It's an honors program. So just like in high school, how you have an honors program from maybe getting certain grades or maintaining a certain GPA, we have something very similar to that in college. So how it works at UMass, and every school is different. Obviously, I'm just speaking to UMass now. At UMass, how it works is you take 8 to 10 honors courses throughout your 4 years at UMass. So it's nothing really in addition you have to do. It's courses you would already take just at the honors level. Also, if you're part of honors, you have the opportunity to live in the Commonwealth Honors College residential community, which is exclusive. You do have to be admitted to honors to live there. And then you also will do a senior year thesis project, which is pretty intense. It's also research-based. So the student actually comes up with the project, they design it, spend their senior year doing the research project, and then they present it back to their faculty at the end of their senior year. So all of that basically looks really good on your resume, especially if you're planning on applying to some sort of graduate program like med school or dental school or law school, any sort of doctoral program. It looks really good on your resume. We automatically review every student for honors, so you don't need to fill anything out on the Common App. You don't need to like check a box or like fill out a form. We automatically consider every student. And if you're invited into the Honors College right out of high school, there'll be a little blurb about it in your acceptance letter, so you don't need to wait. It's not like a delayed process or anything like that. If you're not admitted right out of high school, you can reapply when you're a student at UMass. Sorry, I knew you were going to tell me to slow down. I was waiting for it. If you are not admitted to honors right out of high school, you can reapply when you're a student at UMass. And that process is actually reviewed by the Commonwealth Honors College office, not by the admissions office. So it's a little bit different how they review. But that's the honors program at UMass. Like I said, every school is different, but that's at UMass.
So at Framingham, it is going to be very similar to UMass in terms of what is going to be required of you, as well as living situations. Ours does come with a $1,000 scholarship that is renewable for the 4 years. And we also have an honors house where students don't live there, but is a house where our director and co-director of the honors program, their offices are located there, and it's just a really nice spot for students who are part of the honors program to really gather. They have certain events taking place there, academic and non-academic, but that's a great bonus to them, and their ID, only our honors students are allowed into that building. I just wanted to point out is that the Commonwealth Honors Program, I know there was a number of questions just about transferring. Know that the Commonwealth Honors Program does start at the community college. So that can actually go right through from community college to state universities to UMass's. All of us have this program at our universities.
And I know we're short on time, but can I just say one thing that I wanted to say it earlier and I didn't, I forgot. I know that your counselors during this presentation talked about the different options in terms of the community college option, 2-year, 4-year. I just always plug that Massachusetts has one of the best community college transfer systems and systems that I've ever seen. I've traveled a lot in this country and I grew up in California. And I really truly believe that this community college to transfer, this mass transfer program is one of the best that I've ever seen. So you all are very lucky to have this program. So if a 4-year university pathway is not for you, do the 2-year to the 4-year or whatever ends up being your path, because this program, this mass transfer program, is absolutely incredible. So I always like to plug that. It's a really great program.
If I can just mention one thing about that too, often students will ask me if they do the mass transfer program, if that means that they have to attend community college for 2 years and then transfer to a university system and do an additional 4 years on top of that. That's not the case. It's 2 and 2. So it's essentially like you are completing your freshman and sophomore year at the community college, and then you're doing your junior and senior year at the university. So it still takes a total of 4 years.
All right, maybe one more question, just because I'm curious as to how Shayna and Rachel will answer it. And then again, we will answer all the questions that were asked in writing, and we'll send them out. Given the drop in international students and travel difficulties, do schools expect to see a loosening of their admittance criteria and averages from past years? In other words, would students be wise to shoot for schools even if past year numbers might be a little higher than what they offer? I'm curious.
Shayna, I'm waiting for you to answer first.
Okay, so I mean, we're not going to be lenient. I think it kind of goes back to the fact that we're looking to accept the student, right? We're looking for ways to accept you. And actually, Rachel and I sat on a panel together when this whole thing started. I think literally it was probably 2 weeks in from that March 13th, Friday the 13th back in March. And, we didn't know what was going to happen, and we know that every student's situation is different. We know that there may be seniors who are in this audience right now that are now responsible for their remote learning with their younger siblings. And we know every situation is different right now. We know that the household itself some households have been completely flipped upside down at this point. And so again, I can't speak from everyone, but I just, I can definitely say for Framingham, we're going to look for ways to admit you. We're going to look at, your courses, and, what I said to everyone in the spring is that if you are a good student and you're doing well, that is going, you will continue that, our seniors this past year, and we saw that. And I think for now, for you guys as seniors, it is, we know that the trajectory is usually an upward trajectory, and that is what we want to see. But we know that this trajectory up could definitely have some bumps in it and some potholes. And so, I think talking to your counselors, reaching out to your schools, I think that's going to be so important, and to really explain your stories. We know that these stories are going to be so important this year, and really, taking a look at the students as a whole. But one thing that I always caution everyone, and I say this, I think, with every presentation that I have with students, is that at the end of the day, I am a counselor. And at the end of the day, I need to ensure that you are going to be able to do the work that is expected of you at Framingham State. Because if you are not prepared to do that work, college is very expensive. This is one of the biggest investments that you could make, in your lifetime. And so we want to make sure that you are putting that money to good use, and that we're not wasting the money. And if things have been missed for whatever reason, there are other places to start and to get to that 4-year. And so I think that's really, really important for students to know.
The only thing I want to add to it, and I totally agree with everything she said. I was glad she went first. Is that, you know, like she was saying, we were on this panel together back in April, and every question we had was, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, about, you know, the situation and what it's going to look like. And we still don't know a lot, but we do know a little bit more. And I think this is going to be a really unique year that's going to force colleges and universities to really look deeper into college applicants, especially with a lot of us going test optional. So I think this is it's just going to be a really interesting and really different year for all of us, for you all and for all of us. Like I said, it's going to kind of force us to do things differently, and that's a good thing in a good way. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
Well, thank you so much, all of our participants, Mauricio and Julianne, for interpreting even when we were going rapidly. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Shana and Rachel, and of course, the wonderful counselors from Framingham High. So we really appreciate you being here. Again, we will send out a transcript with all of the questions and answers, the PowerPoint, a recording if you want to watch this again, and the resources that we talked about. So thank you so much. Have a good night.